Okay, we'll move on to R, the initial R Taylor, whose question is, have you ever gone into the origin story of your working together? How did you become aware of each other, meet, and discover that your similarities and differences could form a grand working collaboration? Well, I certainly appreciate your assessment of our collaboration. Yes, as a matter of fact, I think in some of our conversations past, we have gone in a bit to the origin story, but happy to review the bidding on that. What do you
Origin
want to say
story.
about that, John?
I would just say that, as with most developments, it wasn't as deliberate as it probably looks. And so the origin story starts that it's blogging heads and people are mixed and matched all the time. And Glenn and I were with each other, but also with other people. I was with all sorts of other people back in the day. But then gradually, he and I coalesced because our conversations seemed to click in a way that at least mine with others did not as much.
Yeah.
And gradually it got to the point that I was only working with Glenn. I never thought about this, because I got busier after a certain point in the early teens, and I could really only spare the time to do it with Glenn. And then after a while, there's the Glenn show. And Glenn, I forget when that happened. How old is the Glenn show itself?
Well, it goes back to pretty close to the beginning of my association with Blogging Heads. There were ad hoc visitations at Blogging Heads where I would be asked by Robert Wright to do a show, and I'd do it. And I don't know, maybe a year in, so that would make it before the election of 2008. We anointed my presence in the Blogging Head suite as the Glenn Show. But it wasn't an independent. It wasn't an independent. No. You could subscribe to the Glenn Show kind of thing. It was one of a half dozen or more podcasters, all of whom were gathered together under the Blogging Heads umbrella. There were other hosts, Mickey Kaus and Bob Wright, prominent among them, but there were others, all of whom were Blogging Heads people. And when you subscribed to Blogging Heads, you got access to the videos that we would put up under the Glenn Show, whatever. But that goes way, way back. But we've been independent at Substack and at YouTube, at first at Patreon for 4 years now, I'm guessing. And actually, you and I had developed an extensive collaboration at Blogging Heads, and it was you who came to me and said, there are other platforms and other ways of presenting your content.
Yeah, I forgot that. I brought that up. That's right.
Yeah, you did. You said there's this outfit called Substack. Do you know what their deal is? They're signing up people. Are you interested? And we did it. But I want to say something else, which is our collaboration or our association started well before we started doing podcasts together. I remember corresponding with you after your book, and I think the year was 2000. Losing the Race was published. And I was in the midst of moving from my right-wing Reaganite conservatism into my left-wing period, my radical anti-racist against mass incarceration. I'm going to save myself in the eyes of my co-racialists by repenting for my conservatism, by being as outspoken, as fervent, and as sharp-edged as I can be in denouncing anti-Black racism, especially in the criminal justice system. I was moving into that phase. And when your book appeared, I took exception to it. And then when my book appeared 2 years later, The Anatomy of Racial Inequality, you were invited by the First Things magazine crew to review it. I took exception to your review of my book. So you were the Coleman Hughes of that day, in my mind, which is to say a young, upstart African-American social critic. You were on the right of the race debate, and in those days, I considered myself to be moving to the left of the race debate, and you became a fat target in my mind. And you came to Harvard and you gave some lectures and you denigrated the work of the great sociologist William Julius Wilson. In my mind, I thought, And I said, "You're not qualified to do that. You're talking beyond what you know. Let me tell you something about sociology. I know something about, you know." So our fruitful antagonism goes back almost a quarter century.
Remember when you came to a Manhattan Institute conference? Remember that one with Deborah Dickerson and you and me and a couple other people? It was an afternoon conference. It was at Columbia, which I did not teach at the time. And you came down for the afternoon, and we did a general race conversation. I have pictures of it. You don't remember that? And you were
I remember Deborah Dickerson. Of course, I remember her.
And it was an afternoon conference at Columbia on a weekday. And actually, it was kind of a bust because I'm going to name them. Randall Kennedy and Orlando Patterson had said they were coming. And then, like 10 days before, ghosted us. Just, didn't even explain why they weren't coming. I was surprised that both of them did that. And I like both of them very much. This is almost 20 years ago, but they did that. So it didn't have the star power that we were expecting. What's his name was there? Eugene Rivers was there. Clarence Page was there. Remember that? And it was probably
no, I don't remember,
Wednesday
John.
afternoon.
I'm blocking on that, but that's.
I'll show you pictures. But you were very glum. You didn't like the things that were being said around you at the conference. You weren't nasty about it, but it was clear that you didn't like hearing the more right-wing statements that various people were making. I remember that.
Yeah.
What's his name was there? Roy Innes was there. It was Roy. Yeah. And you didn't want to hear those things. And I thought, wow, it offends Glenn. This is 05, I remember.
All right. Well,
you don't remember? Well,
I don't remember. I can't remember.
And then a couple
everything.
years after that, we started doing this. Yeah.
Yeah.